5 True Dark Web Horror Stories.
Imagine stumbling upon something so terrifying that it haunts your dreams forever. That's exactly what happened to the individuals in these stories. Stay with us as we unravel the horrors lurking in the deepest corners of the internet.
Story 1. The Red Room.
Our first story takes us into the depths of a red room, a live streaming site on the dark web where viewers can watch and even participate in horrific acts. One evening, a curious thrill-seeker named Alex stumbled upon a red room link shared in a shadowy forum. Despite numerous warnings about the site's graphic content, Alex's curiosity got the better of him. The site required payment in Bitcoin to enter, promising a gruesome show. Once inside, Alex was greeted with a dark screen and eerie silence. Moments later, a chat box appeared, and viewers began flooding the chat with messages. The screen flickered, and a dimly lit room came into view, with a single chair illuminated by a spotlight. Alex's heart raced as he watched a hooded figure drag a bound and gagged person into the frame. The chat erupted with commands, each more violent than the last. The hooded figure, seemingly taking orders from the viewers, began to comply with the horrific demands. Alex watched in horror, unable to tear his eyes away from the screen. As the torture escalated, Alex tried to close the browser, but the site wouldn't let him leave. Panic set in, and he eventually smashed his computer to escape the nightmare. Haunted by the experience, Alex reported the site to the authorities, but the investigation led nowhere. The site disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared, leaving Alex with a trauma that lingered for years. He still hears the screams in his nightmares and regrets the day he ever let curiosity lead him into the abyss of the dark web.
Story 2. Cannibal Cafe.
The second story involves a forum known as the Cannibal Cafe. This disturbing site catered to people with a shared, gruesome interest in cannibalism. One night, an investigative journalist named Sarah decided to delve into the site, creating a fake profile to gain access. Sarah was researching the darker corners of the internet for a book she was writing, and Cannibal Cafe seemed like the perfect subject. Upon entering the site, she found a chilling array of posts discussing various aspects of cannibalism. One thread titled, "Looking for a Willing Participant," caught her eye. The post detailed a user's desire to find someone who would voluntarily offer themselves up for consumption. With a mix of dread and fascination, Sarah read through the replies. To her horror, there were people eagerly responding, offering themselves as potential victims. Sarah initiated a conversation with the original poster, who provided explicit details about how they planned to carry out their macabre feast. The poster described a methodical process involving drugs to numb the victim's pain, followed by the meticulous preparation of the meal. As Sarah dug deeper, she discovered that this wasn't just fantasy. Some users shared photos and videos as proof of their deeds. Sarah's stomach turned, and she felt physically ill from what she was witnessing. She realized the magnitude of the darkness she had uncovered and decided to take her findings to the authorities. The police launched an investigation, but many of the users were careful to hide their tracks. Despite her efforts, Sarah felt a deep sense of helplessness, knowing that such horrors existed and that some perpetrators would never be brought to justice. She abandoned her book project, unable to shake the images from her mind, and spent months in therapy to deal with the psychological scars left by her exploration of the Cannibal Cafe.
Story 3. Daisy's Destruction.
One of the most infamous and horrific cases to come from the dark web is the story of Daisy's Destruction. This video series, produced by a notorious predator named Peter Scully, depicted unimaginable abuse and torture. Scully, an Australian national, lured victims, often children, into his grasp with false promises of food, shelter, and care. He preyed on the most vulnerable, taking advantage of their desperate situations. The series was marketed on the dark web as a pay-per-view spectacle, sold for high sums in Bitcoin. The content was so vile and explicit that it shocked even the most hardened law enforcement officials who came across it. Scully's videos showed scenes of extreme physical abuse and psychological torture, where the children were treated in the most inhumane ways possible. Law enforcement agencies worldwide launched a massive manhunt for Scully after discovering the existence of these videos. The investigation, named Operation Daisy, spanned several years and involved coordination between various international agencies. Despite changing locations frequently and using advanced techniques to cover his tracks, Scully's luck eventually ran out. He was arrested in 2015 in the Philippines after a relentless pursuit by the National Bureau of Investigation. During his trial, more horrific details emerged. Scully had set up a complex network to distribute his videos, utilizing multiple aliases and encrypted communication channels. He had also manipulated and coerced others into assisting him, making the scope of his operations vast and deeply entrenched. His main accomplice, a woman who helped him lure victims, provided crucial testimony that led to his conviction. The impact of Scully's crimes was profound. His arrest led to a broader crackdown on dark web operations involving child exploitation. Numerous accomplices and viewers were also apprehended. The trauma inflicted on his victims was immeasurable, and many of them required extensive psychological care. Scully's arrest brought a semblance of justice, but the scars left by his actions remain deep and enduring. This story serves as a grim reminder of the depravity that exists in hidden corners of the internet and the relentless pursuit needed to bring such criminals to justice.
Story 4. Hitman Services.
The fourth story revolves around dark websites offering hitman services. These sites claim to provide professional assassins for hire, promising to eliminate targets for a price. In 2018, a college student named James, skeptical but curious, decided to investigate one such site as part of his criminology thesis. The site, which went by the name Besa Mafia, featured profiles of alleged hitmen, complete with photos and details of their supposed expertise. James created a fake persona and filled out an inquiry form, providing fabricated details about a fictitious target. To his shock, he received a detailed response within hours, outlining the steps and costs involved in carrying out the hit. The correspondence was chillingly professional, with a clear breakdown of services offered, from surveillance to the actual assassination. James's initial curiosity quickly turned to fear as he realized the potential danger he had put himself in. The site administrators requested a deposit in Bitcoin to proceed with the planning phase. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, James reported the site to the authorities. However, his involvement did not end there. A few days later, James received a threatening message from an anonymous source. The message included his real name, address, and details about his daily routine, making it clear that he was being watched. Panic set in, and James went to the police, who advised him to lay low while they investigated. For weeks, James lived in constant fear, altering his routines and looking over his shoulder at every turn. The investigation revealed that Besa Mafia was not just a scam, but a sophisticated operation designed to extort money from unsuspecting individuals. The operators used the threat of violence to coerce payments, and in some cases they carried out attacks to maintain their credibility. The authorities eventually managed to shut down the site, but the experience left James with lingering fear and paranoia. He changed his major, unable to cope with the psychological toll of his close encounter with the dark web's darkest side.
Story 5. The Human Experimentation Site.
Our final story involves a dark website dedicated to human experimentation. This site claimed to conduct scientific research on unwilling subjects, offering videos and data to paying viewers. A biology student named Emily, morbidly curious, decided to explore the site for a research project. She had heard whispers about such sites in her ethics class and wanted to see if they really existed. What Emily found was beyond disturbing. The site, hidden behind layers of encryption and requiring special access codes, showcased videos of individuals subjected to inhumane experiments. These ranged from chemical exposure to psychological torture. The experiments were carried out in makeshift labs, often in remote locations, where the victims had no chance of escape. Emily watched in horror as people were treated like lab rats, their suffering documented for the twisted enjoyment of others. One video showed a man exposed to a series of unknown chemicals, his skin blistering and peeling away. Another depicted a woman subjected to severe sensory deprivation, left in a pitch-black room with no sound for days. The site claimed that these experiments were for advancing human knowledge, but it was clear that they were nothing more than sadistic torture sessions. Overwhelmed by the graphic content, Emily decided to report the site to her university. Her professor, shocked by her findings, immediately contacted the authorities. The investigation that followed was extensive and involved multiple international agencies. They discovered that the site was part of a larger network of similar operations, each dedicated to different forms of human experimentation. The authorities managed to track down the operators, who were based in several countries, and shut down the sites. Many of the victims were rescued, but the psychological and physical damage they had endured was irreversible. Emily's experience left her traumatized, and she required therapy to cope with the nightmares and guilt of having witnessed such horrors. She abandoned her research project, unable to continue her studies in the face of such evil.
Conclusion of Dark Web Stories.
The dark web is home to some of the most sinister corners of humanity, and it's not a place to be explored lightly. If you found these stories chilling, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for more content. And last thing, stay safe out there, and remember, some doors are best left unopened.